Thank you very much for joining us today once again. And this time, I would like to have a conversation with you about demand deficient, or what we call the third type of unemployment, which is a hard nut to crack, and that is cyclical unemployment. As we mentioned earlier in our video, cyclical unemployment, also known as demand deficient, is caused by the downturn, big economic downturns, when businesses are experiencing tough times in terms of very low, continued low levels of demand for their goods and services. It means people don't have money in their pockets, so they're not buying goods being produced by companies or even consuming services offered in the market. That's when it is really tough for businesses to keep the workforce as it has to sustain profitability. The whole idea of cyclical unemployment comes from the previous explanation about how an economy functions. And the idea was an individual consumes goods and services that they produce. You can produce your own goods and provide yourself with services. But there are other services that you get from the market. Now, when you're producing goods and services, and then so you become the best producer, the most efficient and effective producer, let's say, for example, like Coca-Cola, the owner of Coca-Cola, then you decide, wait a minute, I can produce more and supply the market and make some profit, from the market. So you will want to produce more goods and services. So what do? Instead of producing alone, because you only have so much, you call in help. You ask somebody else who has skills in producing, who has skills in management, who has skills in distribution, to come in and help you produce more goods and services. That way you can be able to supply. Now that the market considers your goods and services as the best in quality and lowest price, for that matter. That help you call in, that's labor. Labor, that's employment. People are employed. Remember, your initial goal was not to give those people jobs. Your initial goal was to produce goods and services and supply them to the market. So if you can be able to produce them yourself, you're not going to hire anybody. If you can be able to use a machine, you're not going to hire anybody. I do not know where this moral or philosophical concept that businesses are established to provide jobs and pay taxes. Those are not part of the story. The whole story was, I'm the best producer, the most effective, efficient producer of goods and services, so I need help. You call in the best in the market. If the best is machines, people are screwed. If the best is people, human labor, they come in. If the best is oxen, like we use oxen to pull the plow, if that's the most efficient at the moment. I'm sorry, human labor, I have no work for you. I can do better with these guys, and they're not complaining. I just feed them before and feed them after. That's it. They don't ask for money. All the money I get is for them, for me. Otherwise, they just eat foliage. Anyway, back to our explanation. So, labor, we call it in to help us produce goods and services in order to maximize revenue, maximize profit, That's the goal of the business. Increase our net worth, add value to our net worth. Unfortunately, it reaches a point, either out of competition, either out of just the market forces, the economy is not functioning properly. People don't have money, they stop buying my product. If they stop buying my product, the people I had called in to help me in the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services, I'm going to have to let some of them go because I cannot get money from my pocket to pay them. No. The reason I called them in is because they were helping me satisfy the market. If the market no longer needs those goods and services, then I'll have to let them go. And that's the reality. Let them go. If the market recovers, then I can call them back or hire new ones. That's how we end up with employment, layoffs, unemployment. And if businesses for a continued period of time they are not hiring, believe you me, now it becomes a problem, especially when you have a population, out of a population of 55 million, and 25 million being the workforce, people who are willing, able, and actively looking for a job, and only 3 million are able to find the formal jobs that are supposed to kind of support the informal jobs in the market. 3 million cannot be able to support the difference, which is 22 million. No way, Jose. Not possible. It would have been better if formal jobs are like 10, 15 million. Then we can be able to work with the other 9 as subcontractors, gig work, and all kind of good stuff. And even the 3 million we're talking about, they're not even earning decent wages. They're earning between 10 and 20 grand a month, which is like $150, $160, between $100 and $150, $160 a month. That's not enough. It is tough. It means the economy is really going through a tough time. It means a lot of people won't have money in their pockets. It means a lot of people won't be able to meet their daily needs, especially the basic needs, food, shelter, and clothing. It means the economy, the businesses will lay off at slightest provocation, at slightest opportunity. It means businesses will not be able to even borrow from financial institutions, because once the financial institutions look at their sales, they'll be telling you barely sell 20,000 per day. How you want me to lend you like 20 million for expansion? Who is buying? So businesses also don't get credit from financial institutions or the support that they need. Financial institutions end up asking for things like collateral. Hey, I'll need a collateral asset, and sometimes it's a little bit hard to have collaterals for 20 or 30 million, just in case you wanted to buy new equipment. If anything, you can be buying a new equipment if your demand is shrinking. So cyclical unemployment is a tough one. And what really causes cyclical unemployment? Let us take a look at it. It's business downturns, business cycle downturn. When demand is low. Why is demand low? What really causes this demand to be so low? It's because people don't have jobs, people don't have money in their pockets. So, as I continue with this conversation, you realize I'm mentioning money, liquidity, cash, capital, money, cash. So the problem of cyclical or demand deficient unemployment is lack of money in the economy. And what causes this these low levels of liquidity in the economy? It is very simple. Number one, most of those economies going through these difficulties, like the African economies, is that they highly depend on imports. The year 2022, Kenya imported goods worth 3.2 trillion. On the other hand, Kenya exported goods worth 900 billion. Even if you had like 300 billion more in terms of remittances, that will only be like 1.2 trillion in terms of exports. That's money coming in, goods going out, including labor, money coming in. Money going out was 3.2 trillion. So we had a shortage of 2 trillion. How do the economies that year suffered a deficit of 2 trillion? Exports fell short. And that's why I call export deficit. So, export deficit is the difference between imports and exports. In this case, 3.2 trillion minus 1.2 trillion, which is 2 trillion. Let's assume, in our case, the government borrowed a trillion for whatever reason. We are still short a whole trillion. How do we recover that? We don't. We just don't. It is that non-recovery that causes those difficulties. We need to recover that 1 trillion. And the only person who has the capability of helping the economy to recover that 1 trillion is the government. The government can push liquidity into the market. That's why it has the central bank, legislature, and the executive and the treasury, in order for them to be able to come up with projects that will provide us with two things as per the government spending concept. The government spending has two objectives: provide us with public goods like roads, water, dams, schools, electricity generating, units. And second, use local labor. Use as much as you can. Use as much local labor and as much local materials as you can in order to put money in people's pockets. But since the government spends, like, it will build a road, but it will use Chinese company. It will build a road, but it will build a dam. It will use outside workforce and outside raw materials when we have local materials here. You might say it's expensive. You might say those people are not going to do a very good job. Let them do it. You'll achieve at least two of the goals at the same time. One might not be fully attained, but it's still attained. We'll have a dam and we'll have liquidity in the economy. These low levels of demand of goods and services that is causing cyclical unemployment is caused by the government not spending sufficiently in those areas that are going to sufficiently and continuously put money in people's pockets. Like school feeding programs. If you started school feeding programs, we're going to feed our children with what? With chicken that we have raised locally, with maize that we have locally, with bananas, with mangoes, with potatoes, with beans that we have produced locally. That is a great opportunity for us to be able to spur, spark economic growth, increase economic activities. Each school can support 20 vendors. 20 vendors will need help eventually. 20 vendors times 5 is 100. Each school will support like 100 jobs. And if we have, let's say 10,000, let's say 50,000, let's say 20,000 schools, 20,000 schools times 100, you know, let me see, 20,000 times 100, that's 2 million. That's about 2 million jobs right there, school feeding programs. If you added another way, like building of infrastructure, like roads, road can take a whole 4 5 million, because it takes the people who are building and those supporting them, and anywhere wherever when they are paid, they are going to, and especially if you use local labor. And we have an opportunity to do better. The government has an opportunity to push liquidity into the market and avoid or alleviate suffering, chronic suffering that has been ongoing in our economies. This is our opportunity to do that, to eliminate chronic suffering, where people with degrees, people with PhDs, masters experience cannot be put to work because the government is so afraid of inflation. It's like you are so afraid of flooding when you live in a desert just because it is drizzling. Are you serious? It's not raining. Come on. You have room to spend an extra trillion into the market and no inflation will happen. No inflation. It won't happen because people are starving. It's like saying if you give me one uh, two slices of mango, I'm going to be overfed and I am starving. Are you serious? You have an opportunity to use the concept of optimum quantity of money. That's something I'll talk about a little bit later. I'll discuss that in detail and I'll explain how that functions. This is where we determine how much money is not too much, not too little. We are not necessarily looking for that particular amount because you can't catch it due to the dynamics of the economy and the data availability. So that's a good way of sparking employment opportunities in an economy. And I guarantee you, you can be able to strike it rich by creating between 4 or 5 million jobs within 1 year. My name is John Mutongi and I approve this message. We'll be discussing further the concept of optimum quantity of money in an economy. And also the other one will be the export deficit spending, because those are two concepts that are very important. We'll also introduce another concept referred to as DEFSA, which is demand focused, supply aligned, a little bit later. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for your time. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and like us on X, and also uh, subscribe to our channel, which is John K Matinga on YouTube. Thank you very much. Stay blessed.